All right. So, Wyatt, two events have happened as of late and that have caught my attention and have kind of sparked some fury within me, some anger.
Some
Uh,
anger. Let's hear it.
oh, yeah. Anyways, it's the first one is this story I'm sure you've heard about of this Carmelo Anthony, this black kid stabbing this white kid, Austin Metcalf, in the heart over basically nothing. I guess there was some sort of uh, dispute over a seat belonging to someone else or someone being where they ought not to have been. But while that's tragic in itself that a child died and it was all over nothing basically. But what I found particularly infuriating about this case is that the father of Austin Metcalf, a guy named Jeff Metcalf, his son had not even been buried, and he goes to the media goes to him, and the one of the first things he says is that he's forgiven the killer of his own son. And this is just right after the killing, basically. It
Right, right.
very little time has elapsed, and it's not as though uh the killer himself or the family of the killer that we know of has been penitent at all. He just said, "I forgive him." And then to add insult to injury, this killer, Carmelo Anthony, has his bond reduced or his bail reduced by like an absurd amount. Like, I believe it was at 1 million and it was reduced to 250K. And so with that, he was able to be released out of prison and is now under, he's at his house,
Right.
awaiting his trial date. Uh, and this is after receiving tons and tons and tons of donations on one of these crowdfunding platforms. I believe it was Give, Send, Go.
Hmm.
And the comments under each of these payments was like basically, just total filth, like anti-white, terrible, terrible stuff. Go take a look if you so desire.
Hmm.
And then Carmelo's family holds a press conference, believe it or not, and Jeff
The
Metcalf,
the guy who's the parents of the guy who stabbed, right?
yeah, the
Okay,
parents
just
of
making
the
sure.
stabber,
Okay, okay.
yeah, they hold a press conference throwing themselves a pity party about how they're afraid, they're getting death threats, they're afraid, they can't sleep at night, stuff like that. But at no point were they apologetic for their son's actions. In fact, what happened was the father of Austin Metcalf decided to show up to this press conference, and one of the spokespeople for the Anthonys, so the family of the stabber, said it was inappropriate for Jeff Metcalf to be at this event and had him thrown out. I shit you not. And
And he wasn't causing a problem, right? He wasn't being,
He wasn't.
he
He
wasn't
was
causing
not.
a ruckus. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't yelling. He was just his presence demanded that they kick him out, right?
Yes. And Jeff Metcalf's reasoning for having been there, what he said was that he wished to pray with the family. I'm like, okay, that's odd. Now, before I opine on this story, which I'm sure you can already tell my feelings about it, let me throw in another story that happened this weekend before Pope Francis tragically passed. So, this weekend, we have JD Vance, our vice president. He goes and a Catholic convert. It's Easter weekend. He wants to take the family to the Vatican. So he goes to the Vatican and he's thinking, oh, well, maybe I could get a meeting with the Pope on Saturday. And I believe it was scheduled. But instead of meeting with the Pope snubbed him and sent a representative. And the representative basically, gave JD Vance a talking to, a bit of an admonishment on JD Vance's immigration beliefs, his policies, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, JD Vance did get a little photo op with the Pope. We don't know what they discussed, but and in any event, the Pope is now dead. We can talk about that maybe in a minute. But I wanted to tie these two things together. It's what was I found so infuriating about them was this weakness, this pure weakness. And I gotta say, I mean, it's Christian weakness. Now, my interpretation of Christianity, you know, I don't interpret it as requiring this level of like weakness, this level of cuckoldry. But can you imagine being the father of a kid who was just stabbed for no good reason and being immediately like, I forgive, I forgive? I don't know. It is just revolting. And I can't fathom it. I really cannot fathom it. Like, I don't have it in my body to do that. Maybe after years and years, and if the killer were repentant and saw the error of his ways, maybe, and that's a big maybe, then I could forgive. And then to have our vice president admonished over our politics, our system, what's going on with us in our country. It's like, this is our country. We don't owe these foreigners anything. And here you are going to talk down to our vice president. And it all comes back to this Christian weakness. And I despise it. And it's obviously not all Christians. Not all Christians are this weak. But it just, I linked the two. They happened at a similar time. And oh my gosh, it's on my mind. They make my blood boil.
I
And
can't. There's what? I don't even know what I don't even know what I'm hearing right now. So you're at least one of these makes sense, all right? Like okay, let's talk about the Metcalfs, right? So
yeah,
your problem is that like in a moment that is full of rage for ideological reasons, for racial reasons, for a million different other reasons. Your fit that you're gonna throw is that the guy who has the right to be pissed off the most is choosing to, express like forgiveness to the person who probably needs it the most. And you're saying that is a weak, that's not a good thing, right? You're saying that is actually the opposite of what needs to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the killer isn't repentant. He thought he was in the right.
Yeah, yeah. I listen. I have to acknowledge ignorance here to the audience, but like my understanding is that this guy has not at all been repentant. Neither has really the family. There's no like understanding that what happened was wrong and their fault, right? But that still doesn't change the fact that the dad has to do what he thinks is right, right?
Well, I'm glad that I guess I could say. Well, no, I can't even say that. I'm not glad about the actions the father has taken. I think it's disgusting,
Really? So walk
frankly.
me walk me through that. How can that even be possible to be said right now? How? How? I mean, rather than stoking the flames of a racial political thing, like why would he engage in that? Why? Tell me why.
I'm not saying he has to race bait, and I'm not saying that at all. If he so chooses, he could.
But you're saying that would be preferable? Like
It would. I would find it preferable to being this weak.
how?
I think the what he could do to strike down the middle more so would be you know a total admonishment of the killer, saying we seek justice. I do not forgive at this moment. I mean to forgive.
There's no contradiction between justice and forgiveness. There's no contradiction there, right? I think you're
Well, I
I don't
think the justice has to come before the forgiveness.
well maybe that'll work for you, but I mean hell, you don't really no, no, you can't believe that. That's definitely not a Christian value, right? Like there's what?
Well, let me give you the story of Jesus drive here's something that just popped in my mind. Jesus drove out money changers in the temple with a whip, you know.
Right.
So, Jesus expressed righteous indignation and even used violence to do what was right and set things straight. And, in Catholic theology, if those people were to seek forgiveness, then, they would be for, and if they were truly contrite and, were truly repentant, then they could be forgiven. But I mean, you have to go to the priest and ask for forgiveness and confess your sins and acknowledge what you did was wrong before you can be forgiven. Otherwise, you're in a state of you're not in a state of grace.
I don't huh. There's just I feel like there's too many different passages about Jesus forgiving people before they repent. Even like even the people who are crucifying Jesus, he prays for their forgiveness. And they're in the middle of the act. I don't think you understand. Jesus is a radical level of forgiveness. All right. So, like, the people who are literally lashing him, making him carry a cross, and then ultimately crucifying him, walking him through the streets so that way they can throw, tomatoes, eggs, whatever they had at the time, and beat the dog out of this guy. And he's praying in the middle of all that for their forgiveness. And you're telling me that this guy, that's what, not consistent with the theology and the morality of Jesus? Is that
Well,
really what
well,
you're
well
going to
let
tell
me
me?
ask you this:
Is that
if
really what you're going to tell me right
okay,
now?
okay, let me ask you
Because
this: if
Peter got condemned, right? Like Peter was condemned for his violence, right?
yes, yes, but let me ask you this: you brought up those people crucifying him, and Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So, he's referring to the Pharisees and then the Romans. But, so let's take those Pharisees in the crowd. Now, let me give you a hypothetical. So, out of nowhere, a flying arrow, for some reason, shoots into the head of one of these Pharisees while they're crucifying Jesus, where does that Pharisee go? Well, he would obviously go to hell. And why? Because he was in the middle of an unrepentant evil act. He was committing deicide. He was killing God, Jesus. So he would certainly go to hell. And, and that, hell is part of the, as omnibenevolent and merciful as God may be, hell is certainly a place people are going. And I mean, you know, even if he wants all souls to be reunited with him, many will not be. So,
I don't understand how that's relevant here though, right? Because
well,
like the
because Jesus can want mercy on them all he wants, but it doesn't change the fact that if they don't seek it out, it won't be given to them.
Right, right. I mean, I guess that's not at all inconsistent with anything I've said or the Father has said, right? I mean, the agency for their salvation belongs to them, right? Whether or not they want to accept and repent, I mean, that's on the Anthonys, right? That's not on the Metcalfs, the victims' families, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying is, did Carmelo ask for forgiveness? If no,
No, yeah,
then
yeah.
if
Sorry.
not, then why is Jeff Metcalf dispensing forgiveness?
Well, I don't recall the people crucifying Jesus asking for forgiveness either.
Yeah, and I would assume
That
most of them are in hell.
arguably that might be when forgiveness is the most needed. All right, whenever it's like whenever it's not even being sought out. Like that and plus you got to think this might also be for him, right? Like this I mean, there's nothing he's going to say to that Metcalf guy. Or sorry, there's nothing that he's going to say to that Anthony kid that's going to change his way of thinking, right? Like this may just be his personal way of moving on. And for you to call it weakness, I think is a little bit. I mean, frankly, I think it's a little bit bullshit. Like you're gonna tell me that this guy is mourning his son who's dead. That's a pain you and I can't even understand. And to say that he's going about it in a weak way, and he should be vengeful, and he should be angry, and he should be calling for the gallows against a kid, I think is a little lunatic of you. Got to be honest with you.
Well, let's just say if it was my kid, this would not be my reaction. And frankly, if I died, I would hope that there would be a little more righteous indignation coming from my loved ones and my friends. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine
Right.
my father making a display such as this in the face of people who hate him, because obviously the conduct of the Anthony family and all their supporters, it just
Totally
proves
reprehensible. Yeah,
it's
totally.
terrible. They obviously despise Austin Metcalf. They despise the entire Metcalf family. Why would you show such grace to such people that don't deserve it? It's one thing if truly, it is a whole other matter if they were penitent. But it is disgusting. It is fucking despicable to just go out and cuck yourself like that, and to it just makes my blood boil. I shit you not, I'm like red hot thinking about it. Like where is the anger? Where I mean, like anger that is supposed to be there. Like there are human emotions that you should feel that are just not being displayed. I don't know. I
Look.
just don't know what to say.
I mean, listen, I'm totally like, I think it's fair game to say that, listen, I would feel very differently and I would be angry. Not just angry, like, like you and I would probably both be like flipping tables, right? That level of angry, right? Like, which of course I'm referencing the Jesus thing that you mentioned earlier. Like, the level of righteous indignation would be unmountable, right? But I mean, this guy chose to go a different route, and honestly, I got to be honest with you, it's probably the more scriptural route, or at least to me, Because it's easy to do what you and I want to do and get angry and get pissed off and, spark some flames and turn this into something huge. But he chose to, kind of die it down, pray for their forgiveness. He wants to pray for them. We're supposed to pray for the people who hate us the most. And I think a dude who's not living up to that in the worst way possible. I mean, I can't imagine you telling me that this guy's not like leading by a good example right now. I mean, I think that's fucking crazy.
I just, I don't know. I don't know if I can call what he's doing good when I don't want to say it almost enables this kind of behavior, but I almost feel like it does. I feel like this weakness, it enables this kind of behavior where, if you're not even going to fight back, if you're not even going to, like just show some righteous indignation.
Not
I
gonna
mean,
fight back. This kid is still likely going to go to prison for a huge chunk of his life.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, if they can't, I don't think the death penalty is going to get pursued, but you
No,
know,
I
I
doubt it.
I
I
hope
doubt it.
they get close to it in terms of how much they take away from this kid's life. But I mean, I also don't know. You never know when these cases when they get politicized, just like the OJ trial. I mean, we don't know. He might get off scot free.
Yeah,
What then?
that is a possibility. And listen, I'm not a legal expert or anything. I don't really weigh in on like my opinion of which way a trial's gonna go or not go, but I'll tell you this. Like the few commentaries I've seen on this from like legal experts, they say it's more 50-50 than people think. I mean, it's probably like 60-40 he gets guilty, but they're like there's a real self-defense claim here because there's no I mean, it's witnesses. So it's just he said, she said. There's no recording. There's no like at the end of the day, like this is going to be very jury dependent on whether or not this kid walks or spends the rest of his life in a 4x6 cell.
Exactly, exactly. It's jury dependent. So, depending on the demographics of the jury, I don't know that justice will get doled out. And then what good would Jeff Metcalf's forgiveness have been? If there's no justice, I don't think there should be forgiveness.
Well, two things on that. All right, two things on that. Well, actually, first of all, so many things on that. But um one, justice outside of like vigilantism is out of his control, right? Um so I mean that's just flat like he can't control the justice of this kid's unless like what's he going to do? Go, exchange blood with this kid or something? Like no, you know? Um and the other thing like I mean, I just don't understand how you can say that forgiveness comes after justice because that's almost flipping the entire crucifixion on its head. I feel like the entire crucifixion went upside down just now for that, you know?
I to a degree I get what you're saying, but I mean, in how you receive absolution, in the Catholic faith at least, you have to seek it out. I mean, you have to be penitent. So to me, the order of operations, I guess, is like, uh, you know, forgiveness seeking, and then maybe most like, if you're truly contrite, then yeah, you'll be back in a state of grace. But you'll also have to pay a price. You'll have to, maybe if it's a minor sin, you do some Hail Marys, you do some, Lord's prayers, whatever your penance might be.
I think
But
I think you might be confusing like forgiveness for atonement. Um, you know what I mean? Like I feel like so like if that is what you're saying, like that I would agree with. Like the only way to atone for killing, it's Austin Metcalf, right? Is the son who died?
mhm.
Yeah, the only way to atone is the Anthony kid has to, have some form of justice or have some sort of penance or regret, repentance even, but I would just take justice, honestly. Like hopefully we get one of those, but like forgiveness is something totally has nothing to do with Anthony, right? It's totally up to the father and the mother and I don't know if he has a twin brother, like none of
Oh yeah,
this
yeah.
none of this is dependent on uh Anthony anymore, Uh listen, if you're talking about should I don't even know, man. It's just the concept to me is just it's just terrible because I don't understand how you can say that what this kid did can't be like atoned for or now I'm not saying that he is acting in such a way right now, but I'm saying like if this kid had a total change of heart tomorrow, it'd be a miracle, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if he truly changed his ways, I think that would be miraculous.
Now that doesn't mean that he's forgiven or he's atoned for it, right? Necessarily, but I think realizing what you did is wrong is just the first step, and I know that that's more you're leaning to, but I don't know. I can't wrap my head around what I mean. The alternative, I'll tell you what I was more disgusted by is like you followed the Rittenhouse case too, right? Like I'm far more disgusted by that than this case, don't you think?
What Rittenhouse did versus what Carmelo Anthony
Yeah,
did?
no. It's more of the reaction of what happened. The way that like Rittenhouse reacted versus like Jeff Metcalf, the dad, how he's reacting. Because Metcalf is going out of his way on like a media tour to be like, I don't hate the kid. I pray for the kid. I pray for their family. I forgive him, like all of that, right? Versus like Rittenhouse was going around on a propaganda tour making money off the fact that he killed two people. You know what I mean? Like there was no repentance, there was no oh my god, what I've done is wrong. I took the lives of two people. This is horrible. There was none of that. There was none of that, you know?
Well, here's where we're. I think. Well, I'm actually glad because most podcasts we don't deviate as much, but in terms of Rittenhouse, from what I remember of the case, I think I'm totally fine with him going on a media tour because I think he was justified.
No. Those are two very different questions to me. Whether or not he was justified in the self-defense claim is very different than him being comfortable with what he did, him making money off of that. I think to be quite honest with you, I think it's fucking gross what he did. All right? He killed two people, had crocodile tears in court so that way he could fool a jury and then went on Tucker Carlson and every podcast that could have him like Charlie Kirk and Steven Crowder, and he literally was making millions off of the fact that he killed two people in self-defense because he's this hero for these right wingers who dream about getting to kill somebody. And I think it's gross to be honest with you. And I understand that they're very different cases, right? But I'm just specifically arguing for like the reaction to him. I could not think of a worse way to react to killing people than what we're seeing right now by the Anthonys and like what we saw with Rittenhouse.
Well, I'm more charitable to Rittenhouse. I think I think what he did was totally fine because again, I mean, I think what he did that night was justified. I think if any if we're gonna admonish the Rittenhouses, so like his family and himself, I would say it was highly irresponsible of his parents to let him go out there with a gun and be doing all that. But he was, if I remember, he was, a minor at the time, right? Or at least
Right,
like
right.
18 or
17.
something.
I think he was
Oh,
17.
17.
Yep.
That sounds right. I mean, to me, I think Rittenhouse is pretty blameless in the whole thing. And honestly, like, if you think about it from his perspective, I mean, you're this guy who got famous. You got like 15 minutes of fame for killing some like Antifa types. I mean, chances are after this, you're going to be unemployable for like most professions for like forever. So you might as well get your bag while you can. I mean,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So you're telling me that this kid is blameless from, he's only 17. How is he supposed to know he's not supposed to go or he's not supposed to be there with a gun or, bad things might happen. But also, he's a super genius who weighed the pros and cons of going on national TV and all these big name shows so that way he could get a bag now. So that way in the future when he's unemployable, like I don't understand. I don't think you can have it both ways, to be honest with you.
well, it doesn't take a super genius to figure it out. I mean, you got to cash in while you can. I mean, plenty of low IQ people do this. I mean, think
I
about the
I
Cash Me Outside girl. She cashed in on her
Dude,
15 minutes of
I'll tell
fame.
you what, this is just my estimation. I think that what he did was stupid. Like you admitted, like his parents, the fact that they even let him go, bad idea,
Oh,
right?
yeah, it was crazy stupid. I don't deny
But,
that. I'm just
but,
saying I think it was justified.
but I'm saying even after the fact, I think what he did was gross. Like, I don't know about you. Like, if I killed two people, even in self-defense, like I would be fucking mortified. Like I couldn't. I don't know how I'd sleep. Like just to be honest with you. And this guy is literally like making money and smiling talking about it. Like he's having a blast. Except for whenever he goes into court in front of a jury where he then cries about it for 2 or 3 minutes describing what happened.
Well, okay, okay. That this is a while back, so my memory isn't as fresh. So, but to me, I interpreted his tears as just being overwhelmed from the process of it all. I mean, he's facing down a long time in prison. Derek Chauvin, I believe his sentence came before this, right? No, no, it came after,
I
right?
actually couldn't tell you.
I
Couldn't tell
I
you.
can't quite remember, but in any event, he's facing down potentially quite a long time in prison and being pretty universally hated by the people he would end up in prison with. So he's facing down a lot. He's under immense stress. I mean, I might break down in tears too. I mean, there was a good chance he could be locked away for half
Right.
his life. I mean, I would be crying too, and not for the people I killed. Fuck them. Fuck those people he killed. I don't give a fuck about them. But you know, so I would be crying too. If I were him, I'd be crying too. But
So
I think it was a totally justified kill. So fuck them. I mean, they were chasing him with weapons. Fuck them.
I, I blown away right now. There's no, so you're, I don't understand. So he's going through a lot, right? And he might go to jail for the rest of his life. And oh my God, that's horrible. And who can imagine that? So he's gonna cry, not on the millions of shows he did after that, where he's talking about it and talking about how overwhelmed he was. He's gonna only cry. That's the only time he got overwhelmed. That's the only time he got so overwhelmed he couldn't talk and he had to sit there, sniffle, and cry for 3 minutes.
Well, yeah, because he might be sentenced right. Yeah, right. Because of that, I'd be crying too. That'd be a stressful ass moment.
Dude, there's I look. I guess we'll never know. Neither one of us are inside of his head. I don't buy it. I don't. I don't buy it. I think that dude is way too okay with the fact that he killed two people and made a bunch of money off of it. That's just my opinion. I think he's way too cool with that. Um, and I feel that way about a lot of different, not just like, trial stuff. Like I don't really feel too good about like whenever there are like movies made about like, for example, like war veterans and they have to like they're like glorifying like the killing, like I'm not even a big fan of that. So like I've got a pretty low bar here, but it's this is just it magnified, you know?
Well,
But I
I'll
would
say,
concede more Americans feel like you do 100%. I am a huge I feel like cultural minority here. Like most people are like you. Like yeah, they came at me with a weapon. Fuck them.
Yeah, and while I'll also temper, I'll say this. I'll say this. I talk a big game. F them, whatever. I've never killed anyone. So maybe if I did kill someone in a totally justifiable, justified way, like a home intruder, I shot them and, they were bleeding out on my floor, maybe there would be something traumatic about that would haunt me. I can't say for sure. I don't know uh, how I would react because I've never done it, so I can't say I'm like some macho man. There's a total chance it might traumatize me a little, but you know at the end of the day, I don't think I would feel guilt about it. I think it might there might be aspects of it that were traumatic in terms of like it might scare me to sleep at night because I'm always on edge like, oh, what if somebody breaks in? But I don't think I would feel any like I don't think remorse would be a huge emotion. It might be there. It might be there. I can't say for 100% certain that it wouldn't because I've never done it, but who
Yeah.
knows?
I mean, listen, I I don't want to believe that I would not be remorseful at all. Like if I had to kill somebody, like you said, in a home intruder or somebody comes at me, like where whatever, right? Like I can't imagine I wouldn't be remorseful because like I don't know, that's wild. But
I mean, if it were more gray, I guess like maybe the home intruder comes in and I go to shoot him, and he's like, "Wait, wait, wait!" But I'm already like in the adrenaline phase, and I'm in the moment. And then I just like blow his brains out or something. Maybe then maybe there'd be a little more remorse. I don't know. I don't know. It's impossible to say. I've never done it, but uh, yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. I just don't envision it. Uh, yeah.
yeah. Now I am curious about this Pope Francis thing. So like what is your feeling? You don't like how what the Pope is being a spiritual leader to one of his many Catholics? You don't like that at all?
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, I get that it's kind of like the dynamic of like this, who am I to dictate what the vicar, the vicar of Christ, says to, like you said, a member of this flock. But at the same time, it's like this is an issue. It affects me, and I just kind of want him to butt out. And I hope that, I mean, okay, look, Pope Francis just died, so I don't want to be like crass or anything, but I hope that whoever assumes leadership, after the conclave that'll be happening, you know, over the course of probably the next couple weeks or couple weeks or whatever. I'm sure we'll have a new pope by the end of May. Uh, I hope they take a more conservative, more traditional tone. I think that's what's needed right now. I hope that Pope Francis was kind of like the woke pope. He came in or like 2013. That was like the proto woke era, 2013 to 2015. And 2025 was like the definitive end of the woke era because Trump got reelected, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So I would hope that, alongside the cultural defeat of wokeism, that the Vatican also kind of takes a turn as well. Uh, we like to say, the Vatican is like, I think the Vatican is an institution of this world, just a, maybe not as much as other institutions for sure, but because they are unchanging and the essentials. But I think, in terms of tone, I think they will acclimate. I think they'll at least probably choose a moderate or someone more or hopefully someone more conservative, and I hope they do, to meet the moment, because that's where all the energy in the youth is.
Yeah, I mean, the chances that we get a more right-leaning pope than Francis are astronomical. I mean, the demographic of this conclave, like ideologically, is like, I mean, there's not many people that would vote for Francis again, to be quite honest with you. That's just the way it is. Francis is about as far left as you can go as a practicing Catholic, you know.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. It really can't get much more woke without being heretical or something. So.
Yeah. Now you're right in the sense that like culturally though, you will see and politically you're going to see a crazy shift to the right, most likely. Um just based on I mean like there are several cardinals who are up for it who are radically anti-immigration, anti-migration, right? And uh you know all the LGBTQ stuff, all the versus Pope Francis, he's the ultimate inclusive guy. Like let's open our gates, let's let everybody in, and let's tend to every as many people as we can. That's kind of our job. But like there's going to be a lot more exclusive people, who are just going to say no, we're not letting certain people in, we're not letting, for example, we're not going to bless gay people anymore, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, like you shouldn't. And I think that's significant, right? Like you're talking about a spiritual leader of over what, a billion people, 1.2 billion people.
Oh yeah, quite a few, quite a few, and Pope Francis. It's funny. All on Twitter, he died, and I admired him. I think he's a good man, but I do think it is telling how all the like zealous, I would say, true believers, the converts, stuff like that. All those people who are Catholic, they would say, "Oh, he was a good man. I liked him. I respected him, but I do have my critiques." But then all the like atheists and all the non-believers and all the, just non-Catholics in general of a more liberal disposition, all across the timeline, all I'm seeing is stuff like, "Oh, the greatest pope of all time. He did this for the LGBT. He did this for feminism. Whatever. Just take your
Right.
just take whatever liberal issue you want, and they would probably think he was good on it." But I was thinking to myself, that's great and all that he has mass appeal, but I think the pope that we need, or that the Catholics need at least, I don't really consider myself Catholic anymore, but I do know where the energy among the youth is. I was in those circles. They need an arch conservative. They need a hardliner. They needed it in 2013. They need it now. The Pope Francis, good man. I admired him, but he did not meet the moment. That it was. It is not the time and place for
No,
for such laxity, I think.
no. This is the only now. This is bull. So listen, to touch up on what you said about how all these Catholics and all these converts and these zealots, they had his critiques. They'd say he's a good guy, but they'd have, and then the atheists, all those guys, they love him. They love him. Well, Darren, I mean that's obvious, isn't it? It has nothing to do with their religion. It has to do with their cultural and political opinions, right? Like that's all that is, right? If you
Exactly.
if you were to go up and down and tell the atheist, like, well, what do you think about him saying that you should submit to the authority of the church and Jesus died for your sins and all that? The zealots would say, they'd be like, hell yeah, that's exactly what we think. And then what would the atheist say? Oh my God, Pope Francis, the authority. Like they liked him in a relative assessment. Okay, that's all it was. But I can't disagree more though that right now what we need is an arch conservative. Like I first of all, I think you're right. That's what we're going to get, but I think that that's not what we need because right now, because of all these wars and the effects of climate change, like there is going to be a mass migration. I mean, you're already seeing it, right? Like, I mean, you and I have talked about this at great lengths. The level of immigration worldwide, not just to us, to Europe, to China, to Japan, to Vietnam, to America, right? Like even Mexico is being overrun. You know, like um, I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
we need a leader who's gonna come up and say like, listen, that we're gonna have to live together by necessity. If not, you know, like if not for good intentions, then like just out of pure necessity, we're gonna have to get together and get along. You know.
Well, here, I mean,
And
I
what's
do
what's
think,
your what's your proposition? What we build up walls, keep people
uh,
out?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. That was just really funny to me.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well,
But
how am I
I
supposed
mean,
to
I
argue
do.
with that, folks? That's so funny.
I mean, you are right. I think, probably global migration is probably going to escalate or increase, I should say. I mean, just like you were saying, I mean, I'm a believer in climate change, so I think that'll be a huge factor. World War III seems ever imminent with Iran, so and that'll that could bring in China, Russia, who knows. Uh, so I think displacements because of the climate, displacements because of war, it totally could happen, but at the end of the day, I think Western nations have taken in enough, and that the message I want to hear is not a message of letting people in. I want these Western European countries, America. I want it to retain its identity. I value that more.
Yeah, yeah, and that's totally understandable for you to like have that position, right? I mean, it'd be the same for me. Like if you were to tell me like Wyatt, like all these whites are going into say Iran and they're changing Persian culture and pretty soon in a couple of years like there will be no Persian culture. I'd tell you that that's a tragedy, right? That a people as, culturally significant as the Persians are losing their identity, right?
Oh yeah,
Or the
oh yeah,
Chinese or the Japanese. Like I would feel this way about any race or any ethnicity, right? Um,
oh
I think
yeah.
I
And I
think.
I
Oh, go ahead.
truly fear. Oh my bad. I just wanted to add. I truly fear that in the next couple of centuries, that because of demographic trends, low fertility of some of these nations like Japan, South Korea, there might not be a Japan or a South Korea, or as we know it by the year 2200. To the extent those people still exist, unless something drastic happens, it there might not be many of them left. I find that tragic.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't disagree. Like I said, like for example, South Korea, right? Everyone's always like, like you see the memes all the time where it's like, well, what if we divided a country in two between communism and capitalism and see which one wins? Well, it turns out that like eventually South Korea is going to get to the point where they're going to lose to North Korea just because they refuse to breed. And that's
Hmm.
that's just the way it is. I mean, they're past the point of recovery at this point. So, in other words, what that means is they're going to have to import people to like they're going to have some form of immigration just to keep the population like level because they don't have the population now to breed enough. You know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah.
um it's unbelievable.
And the population centers they're going to have to get these from are going to be one of three places, really. I mean, it'll rather be sub-Saharan Africa, India, or China.
Right.
But in any case, whoever of these people they import, their culture will not remain the same. It won't. It'll cease to be Korean after enough of this shift. So it's tragic. It's just very tragic. But
Well, and I will say, and I wanted to touch upon it earlier, but I kind of got lost, and then we switched a little bit. But I just want to say that, like, yes, it would be a tragedy if like whites lost their culture. My worry is, and all cultures run into this, but like whenever you run into like a supremacy problem, where it's like I have like we're Western European and that makes us better, and therefore we have to govern all these other nations around the world. I don't necessarily like that, and I think that that's incredibly dangerous, right? Um, so like there, and the only reason I bring that up is like irrelevancy is because I think that there is a contingent, particularly in Europe, that is like that. This like what's her name? The French political candidate who just got barred from running.
oh, Marine Le Pen.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like a lot of her faction and a lot of the German faction and a lot of the far right in the UK's faction, they're more focused on like the preservation of like the white demographic, not the Western European culture of like democracy and neoliberalism and none of that. And I'm fine with culture changing. I just don't want it to be erased. I mean, do you really think that the culture like in like the 1980s in like Europe is the same as like in the year 1080?
Oh yeah, of course not. I mean,
And
I,
that's
I
got
think
nothing to
we
do with
were.
race, right? That's just got to do with just because of a culture change, right? Slow degradation changes over time, right?
Well, I'd say it's racial and cultural, but in terms of how people act. But yeah, like I think culture is ultimately downstream of race. I think genetic proclivities do exist.
It's fascinating. Interesting. But I guess to get back to the Pope, I'm sorry I got us on this long
Oh no, you're
diatribe.
you're fine.
You're hoping that we get a Pope that is more conservative on like not just theology, which most popes are. That's just kind of the nature of it, right? But cultural and political issues, you're hoping that they will be more in line to say that like no, like preserve your own country, like however they're going to spin it, you know what I mean? Because they're not going to just say like Europe kick out, non-white Christians, right? They're going to say like no, like Christians of wherever preserve where you are or whatever, right? That's what you would prefer?
Yeah, yeah, I would vastly prefer that over Pope Francis's messaging.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it might happen. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. I truly don't know. I haven't been following church stuff for a long time, so I really can't offer any deep insights. And honestly, I even if you were a someone who stayed up to date on these things, I don't know that you could provide deep insights. These conclaves are pretty secretive, so I don't think anybody knows. Or
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of I've probably read 10 or 15 different articles about like here's the top whatever candidates, top 3 candidates, top 2, and they're all different people, every single one. So
yeah.
it should be interesting. I'm just interested to see because we'll know as soon as they name them what direction they went in, how far right did they go, how far moderate did they go. Um, I'm just interested to see. To be honest with you.
Oh yeah, I'm incredibly interested. I think it might kind of the Catholic Church has waxed and waned in terms of its relevancy on culture, but I think it has become more culturally relevant, especially under the papacy of Francis. So, I do think it might mark a vibe shift, or it might contribute to a general vibe shift, depending on who they pick. So, I am
For sure.
interested for cultural reasons.